Welcome to 7DSystem, this is the DMG, and we're going to be talking further about the mechanical aspects of 7DSystem, and this is how to calculate the combat score. So if you're enjoying these videos about 7DSystem, please consider supporting this channel, and you'll also support the production of this game by checking out patreon.com/7DSystem. Like button, and of course click the bell so that you can receive notification of new videos as they come out. So calculating the combat score. So 7DSystem is a little bit of a departure from what you would normally find in role-playing games, where an enemy has a score, and that sets the difficulty as to how hard it is to hit the enemy. In 7DSystem, it's the situation determines how difficult it is to hit the enemy, and that's where the difference lies. So, as we said in the introduction to combat, there are two things that are taken into account. One is the enemy does not want to be hit, and two, you are trying to gain an advantage over them. So the combat score is a range of advantages that you add up in order to change the dice that you're using, and then your weapon proficiency determines how many dice you use in order to attack. So at a score of 0, you get no dice whatsoever. So you cannot attack because you have no advantage over the enemy whatsoever. So they could simply just walk away and you would not be able to hit them, so you have no dice at all. A score of 1 means you roll d20s. So it is very hard to hit them. You haven't got a lot of advantage over your opponent. It's easy for them to just step out of the way. They're seeing you coming. It's really not that hard. So, you know, you have a very slight advantage over them. They may not have a weapon, you have a weapon, but they can see you coming. They can easily dodge out the way. No problem. Then you have combat scores 2 all the way through to 7. So as you gain more advantage, you add to this combat score, and you go from D12s to D10s to D8s to D6s, D4s, and finally D2s. So the combat score of 7 is D2s, and that's what you're aiming for. There is no score of 8, so the moment you get to 7, you can't add any more to that score. So each little advantage that you can squeeze out of the situation gets you a higher score. So this is excellent in terms of people who are traditionally called power gamers, because in order to be a power gamer in this game, you actually have to make combat more interesting. So if you wanting to adapt the rules in your favor, you just have to do more interesting things. It takes a little bit of time to learn this, but don't worry, there is this reference sheet that you can get off the 7DSystem website. This is version 0.85. There will be newer versions, so don't expect it to look exactly like this. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to talk about the types of advantages that there are and how much they give you in terms of an advantage score. So these are by no means all of them, but these are some of the ones that you get an idea of the advantages and how they work. So first of all, you have the base advantage. Now the base advantage means you are ready to fight and you're able to fight. So you get 1. You have 1 advantage, so you always then get a dice. If for some reason you are unable to fight, or you're not willing to fight, or something to that effect, you do not get this dice, and so that's where you can get a score of 0. Now the first part of advantages are situational advantages. So the situation is such that you have an advantage over the enemy purely by the circumstances of where you are and what's happening. For instance, if the opponent cannot move, they're frozen, they're paralyzed, they're incapacitated, you get 6 points. So with your base score plus your 6 points, you get to 7, it's D2s. So if you have no weapon proficiency in a weapon, let's say you just pick up a rock and you want to hit them with the rock, you roll a single D2. It's a 50-50 chance that you're going to do some damage to this person. But if you're quite proficient with a weapon and you've got 4 ranks in sword, for instance, you've got your base dice plus your 4 ranks, you've got 5 dice, you're going to roll 5 D2s. So it's extremely likely that you're going to hit this person when they're frozen and incapacitated. So from there down, it's things like if the opponent can barely move, it's a score of 5. And the advantages in the sheet will give you a little bit of an explanation of what that means. So if they've lost their wits, they're dazed, they're intoxicated, these sort of things, you get a combat advantage of 3. So you add that to your combat score. If the opponent is on fire, you get an additional advantage of 2, so you add that to your combat score. And then things like surprise and the opponent is unarmed each give you 1 point extra. Then we have location advantage. So this means your positioning with relation to your opponent. So for instance, if you are behind your opponent and they don't know that you are there, you get an advantage of 5. So this adds 5 to your combat score. So if you had just the base score of 1 plus the 5, you're rolling d4s. If they are unarmed, it now makes 7, so you are then d2s. But if they know that you're there, it drops from 5 to 3, so you only get 3 points because they already know that you're there, so they're going to be trying to dodge you because you're behind them, so it lessens your advantage over them. If the opponent is on the ground, you get 3 points. If you're on higher ground, so you're above them, you get 1 point of advantage. And then you have movement advantage. So not only does the location of where your character is in relation to the opponent, how you're moving also gives you an advantage. So if you are charging into combat, this gives you 2 advantage points. If the opponent is falling, being pushed or dragged, you get 2 points. If you drop onto them from above, you get 2 points as well. So you're charging effectively from above. You would also get higher ground in that aspect, in that scenario as well. And if the opponent is stationary or occupied, you also get 1 additional point each. So stationary would be things like they haven't moved in the previous turn. They've just stood their ground. They're much easier to hit because they're not moving around. Occupied would mean that they are busy doing something other than fighting you. So they're busy fighting someone else. They're busy casting a spell, they're busy reloading a weapon, they're occupied doing something else. Then there's a size advantage. Now, if you are larger or smaller than a character, this changes the dynamic of the game considerably based on the size attribute that we've talked about in previous videos. So size takes into account smaller characters find it easier to hit larger characters. So if you are smaller, you automatically get 1 point. But if you are orders of magnitude smaller, so if you're half the size, you then get 2 points. If you're a third the size, you get 3. If you get a fourth the size, you get 4, etc., etc., etc. So how big you are really comes into play in terms of how easy it is to hit. If you're really small and you're fighting a dragon, it's easy to hit the dragon because it's such a big target. But that doesn't mean that it's easy to damage the dragon because the dragon has a lot of protection. Because being larger also means that your attacks are not as effective. But we'll get into that. Have a look at the videos on damage and injuries and size and injuries to find out more about that. Then there's suppression, which means if you are in a situation where people are shooting at you or at the enemy, you are trying not to be hit, the enemy is trying not to be hit. So if the rest of your party are firing arrows at the enemy and you are charging the enemy, you're going to get an advantage because the enemy is being occupied by trying not to be hit by all these arrows, bullets, bolts, whatever is coming at them. The more people that are shooting at them, the more suppression there is. So a single shot gets you 1 point, 2 shots gets you 2 points, 3 points, etc., etc., etc. Then the number of people that are attacking a target also increases your advantage. So if you're ganging up on an opponent, so that's yourself and 3 others, after each person has attacked, the next person gets an advantage from the previous attacker. So the first person gets no advantage because no one else has attacked yet. The second person gets 1 advantage point because 1 person has attacked prior. The third person gets 2 because 2 people have attacked prior. And all these are added on to attempt to get to a combat score of 7. Which gives you D2s, which makes it easier to hit the opponent. There's injury advantage, which means as your opponent gains more injuries, becomes more injured, they are less effective in combat, so you gain an advantage. So the more injuries they have, you gain more of an advantage over them. So typically this is at 2 injuries, 4 injuries, and 6 injuries. You're gaining an advantage of 1, 2, and 3. This means you can actually wear down the opponent, so it makes it more difficult for the opponent because it's easier for you to hit them. And of course, there's also emotional advantage. So when this comes to things like a favorite enemy, you're getting an advantage because you know about this enemy, you've played against, you've attacked them before, you know how they work, they're a favorite enemy of yours, give you 1 point extra because you know the ins and outs of how their minds work. If you're enraged, you're not overthinking things, you are really getting in there and hacking and slashing, you're getting an advantage. There are disadvantages to rage, but one primary advantage is it's easier to hit someone when you're just a flurry of blows. And then there's in the zone. Now in the zone is important. If you have struck 3 times successfully in a row, you then get 3 advantage points, and so it becomes easier to hit it. So you what they talk about in psychology, flow. You get into a flow, it's easier to hit because you've been hitting easily before, so you just get into a groove and you're able to, really lash out the attacks. When it comes to range combat, there's distance advantages, so the closer you are, the more advantage you get. And then there's also an aiming advantage, so the more time you take to aim, the easier it is to hit. So all these are outlined on the system reference sheet on 7DSystem.com. Thank you for watching this video. So if you have any questions, put them in the comment section below, and you can check me out on Facebook and Twitter /7DSystem, and I will see you in the next video.